And we are live for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintraub. How are you doing this week, Seth?
Good. Trying to get back to East Coast time.
Yes, because you're just
CES.
back from CES, Las Vegas. How was it?
It was great. Nissan brought me out to check out their new E-Force, spelled with a 4 instead of a F, and then Orse after the 4. So 4 Orse.
And that's the powertrain inside the new Ariya that we reported on last year?
Right. So it's basically an all-wheel drive 2-motor thing. And, of course, all the other Mustang Mach-E, Tesla Model Y, all the other ones have all-wheel drive. But this one's a little bit different, according to Nissan and according to my drive. They let me drive a Mule, which was a decked-out Leaf with right-hand side driving, with all-wheel drive. And
was that in a parking lot, or did you actually go on the public road?
No, we didn't go on. We went to an actual racetrack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the Las Vegas racetrack where all the exotic supercars are.
Oh yeah. You can rent those for a day or something like.
Yeah, it was, and there's also an airport near there. Not a normal airport, a military airport with like F-14s and crazy stuff like that. So it was pretty cool morning. Unfortunately, there were some Chinese journalists who also wanted to get a ride in there, and so we had blocked out a window, and 90% of our window was the Chinese journalists before us taking our time. So I had 10 more, 10 minutes with driving. Okay. But I mean, I kind of feel like Nissan was like, well, this thing's going to be a big seller in China. I don't know if they're going to push it too much in the US. I mean, that was the impression I got. So I wasn't really as important as those guys. But
why would all-wheel drive not be like a big thing in the US?
I think it would be a big thing in the US. I just don't think I think it's kind of like the Mustang Mach-E. Like they make it, they're going to sell it here, but they're kind of making sure that they have something for the European market or the Chinese market,
where the regulations are stronger,
right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So
the big idea behind the E-Force is that it adjusts the amount of power going to each wheel as you're driving. So what was cool is they could turn it off and on, the E-Force. So what they did is they wetted down the pavement, and then they had us hit a turn going full speed, with the pedal pressed all the way down. And without it, we would just skid, barely have any traction and kind of wheels out. We would go back around, they push the button, and we'd have the E-Force thing. And I guess the outside wheels would compensate by providing more power or more speed than the inside wheels. But the skidding was way less pronounced. Even in, they sprayed down the track with water. So I think that was kind of to show what, the force of skidding in bad conditions. And even with the water on the track, we barely skidded at all. It was pretty cool.
Did you have Mikey with you for that?
No, he wasn't there for that. It was one of those things where they were very
no video.
No video. We signed all kinds of waivers. I did take some pictures. But and one of the reasons I don't have the post up yet is they're supposed to send some video, because you know how they do their own video.
Yeah. So when you say that you can activate, deactivate it at touch of a button, was that for the prototype, or you're gonna be able to activate the torque vectoring and deactivate it in the actual car?
So I don't know for sure. So Nissan is their PR department is very cagey about what we can say and what we can't say about this thing.
Okay.
I mean, it seems like it's coming in the whatever the Ariya is going to be, but it may also come in a Nissan Leaf. I mean,
that was my next question. So they linked it to the Ariya, but the Ariya is supposed to be the SUV crossover version of the Nissan Leaf. So we would assume that it would be on the same powertrain, especially now that they have the new 62 kilowatt hour powertrain. You just have one with multiple motors. And
I don't know why they wouldn't put it in a Leaf, make a high performance Nismo Leaf. And I kind of asked about that, and the PR guys were kind of like, yeah, that's an interesting idea. So
first person to bring it up.
right. So
never thought about it before.
So that might be coming, and they would not make anything official. Like even the Ariya is still like, not happening. Although I saw some other publications had that it was supposed to come later this year, like in 2020.
I mean, it was supposed to come last year too, so we'll see when we see it.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a good looking car. It kind of like from the profile looks a lot like a Mustang Mach-E, or even, in some ways, kind of like a Model Y. It does have some bigger tires, which I'm sure are not going to be standard. The Ariya does, and the inside's lovely. But again, and this is a theme of CES, is it's a prototype, no guarantees that the final product is going to have anything like this. I mean, the final thing could be a Nissan Leaf. Who knows? So yeah, I mean, that was the thing. It was a great drive. I got to talk to Nissan's design director, and all this with the backdrop of the Carlos Ghosn stuff going on. So,
did you read the Wall Street article on that? Just a side note about it, because it was so really good article. Did you read the Wall Street article about the fact that he hired like 15 American mercenaries to help him organize the the escape? That was pretty insane.
That was pretty insane, and it's kind of hilarious that they had to do that and that they did do it. They went through Turkey. It's kind of international. It's
yeah, it's got kind of a weird thought process when all right, you're out on bail, and you're like, you start thinking, all right, I'm not gonna have justice in this court process, so I want to escape. And it's thought to escape is like, oh, let's outsource this to 15 American mercenaries to organize the escape. You have to be pretty damn rich to make that happen.
Yeah, I'm curious.
They took months, right? They took months, like looking at every airport in Japan and see which one has the least amount of security and where there's going to be some vulnerabilities to exploit and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. And Carlos had his press conference like the day before the drive, so everybody was kind of behind the scenes talking about it, although nobody would go on the record.
And he had nothing nice to say about Nissan. Nope. I feel like there's going to be a lot of those going forward, like not necessarily a press conference, but comments from Ghosn about Nissan and where they're going, because he basically said they were doomed without him.
Yeah, I mean, that I don't know if that's
the case,
but they're certainly not doing well at the moment.
No,
doesn't seem like. And getting this Ariya out the door seems to be not trivial for them. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And the rest of the market is all going there. Like the next year, it's crossover. It's a heaven and heavy market for the crossover segment. Like there's going to be so many options. If Nissan is not there yet, they're gonna have a tough time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that doesn't have an electric SUV crossover next year is going to be in a world of hurt, because that's where the besides pickups, and I think the year after that it's going to be pickups.
Or maybe 2022. Yeah,
right.
But speaking of Nissan, because they do have one rare advantage with the Leaf, and that's the capacity to bidirectional charge if you have some kind of hardware to do it. And I think that was the highlight of the CES show for you, was a device that could be the first one to really be accessible for homeowners to have bidirectional charging if they have a car that supports it. And right now the main car that does is the Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, I mean, CHAdeMO is kind of beautiful in its simplicity. There's not a lot of handshakes happening. So Nissan has already, since I believe Fukushima, built in bidirectional charging into all their Leafs. Also, the Mitsubishi Outlander has bidirectional charging. So
on a smaller battery pack, though.
Smaller battery pack. Although it's a pretty big battery pack, it's it's a huge vehicle, so it doesn't get very far on that battery pack. Anyway, so this $4,000 device weighs about 45 pounds, is about the size of a bigger level 2 charger. It charges your Nissan Leaf like a normal charger would, taking the same power out of your house. But
about 7 kilowatts.
A little over 7 kilowatts. But when the power goes out, it can kind of turn your car into a Powerwall. If you have all the other right equipment, you're gonna have to island your house and all the other stuff.
Mhm.
But so that a 62 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, that's gonna provide about 4 Powerwalls. Powerwalls are about 14 kilowatt hours. So and Nissan doesn't let you fully drain it. There's like I don't know,
The
10%
protocol
or
to make it so that it never depletes the battery pack completely. Yeah.
completely, right? Yeah, I think it keeps around 10%. So think about 4 Powerwalls you have in your car. And people don't, so the big thing that comes up is like, well, is the battery warranted for that? And like for if you're going to use it every day, that would be kind of a drag
Mhm.
on the battery. But for most people, Powerwalls are the kind of thing that they use once or twice a year when the power goes out, and it allows them to live like it the mechanism islands their house, so it cuts off the main breaker, and then it provides power to the house just like a normal on grid would.
Mhm.
And then theoretically, if you have solar panels, those solar panels will charge up your power walls, as long as you don't use too much. And sometimes if you're
Mhm.
if you're using ovens and dryers and stuff like that, it's
Yeah.
gonna take up a lot of stuff.
Make a
Anyway,
load.
yeah. So this is a pretty good product for $4,000. You get the equivalent of 4 power walls. You turn your Nissan Leaf into 4 power walls. It works today with Nissan Leaf, so they're still doing some testing, but it's supposed to be
Yeah,
out
it's
this
not
year.
in production, right? It's not in production just yet, is it?
It's not. So I think they're in like low volume validation production, but they expect the Nissan Leaf CHAdeMO version to be out this year. So, by the end of the year, instead of buying a Tesla Powerwall or 4, you could just buy one of these for $4,000, hook it up to your Leaf. It does have another advantage, or another nice thing about it. If you're like a Harley Davidson Livewire owner, you can either charge that thing at level 1, which is pretty slow, and charge all night, and you'll fill up your Harley battery, or you can go to like a Electrify America or EVgo and do a level 3. Well, this is DC charging, so it's a pretty big inverter. Takes your
Mhm.
AC from the house and turns it into DC, or is that a rectifier? I get those confused. Anyway,
I don't know.
you basically can charge your Harley Livewire up in about an hour with this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's nice.
Mhm. It's as if you have a level 2 charger for your because we call it DC because it's literally DC. I saw the video with the guy you have from Wallbox, and he called it like a fast charger for a motorcycle,
Hmm.
which is fair because it's technically a DC fast charger, but it's not at the capacity that we're used to when we're talking about fast charger.
Right.
But if you don't have an onboard charger like you do on the live wire, then it becomes like the fastest solution that you can have at your home, basically.
Right.
Bit expensive though for like if that's what the only thing you plan to do with
Right.
it's expensive. It's $4,000 to do that.
Yeah, but I wonder if it would make sense for like Harley dealerships, because I know Harley dealerships are putting in chargers, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. So like you
Eh,
said, interesting product, but right now only works with the Leaf, only have the CHAdeMO connector option, but it made it clear that they're working with to make it a CCS version of it. They just need to also work with the automakers that do work with CCS to have a protocol to do the bidirectional charging, and also have the warranty that comes with it, basically, because
right.
you need a different battery warranty when you do that.
And automakers, that includes Tesla in Europe, their CCS combo.
Yep.
So maybe European friends will see that.
Yeah, of course, Tesla would be the most interesting one to do it with because the market is bigger, and also on average, you have larger battery pack per car, so you have more room to get some energy out of it. Um, of course, in the future too, if like my problem with Nissan is that it starts with like the warranty on the battery pack is not that great, like 100 miles, and they had some issues with battery degradation because they don't have an active thermal management system on the battery pack. So if you use that thing as a backup system, it's not too bad. But of course, there's the idea of like compensating for the cost, like a $4,000 cost. It's not cheap either, but with some off-peak, what do you call it? Off-peak shaving, off-peak shaving. Well, not peak shaving really, because off peak you wouldn't shave it, but with some peak shaving capacity, if you have that option with your local utility, which they do often with the Powerwall. The Powerwall has this option with many utility across the US. Then there would be a lot of value in that, where if you come home at night and in the evening and you still have some or a lot of power left in your Nissan, you could plug it in, and during the peak of the demand on the electric grid from I don't know, probably around 5 to 7, there must be a peak, I would assume. Then you could send back the electricity to the grid instead of a charging like you would generally do, and instead you charge later at night off peak, and you will have the same result, which is this next day when you're gonna leave, your battery will be full, or 80-90%, whatever you want it to be, and the peak shaving might have covered the cost of your charging of the battery pack in the first later on that night. So you're basically driving for free. Things like that would be interesting. Now, Tesla always said they weren't too interested in that because of you increase the number of cycles you do in your cells when you do that in the battery pack. But I mean, at the same time, Tesla is talking about a 1,000,000-mile battery pack that's going to be released soon. So when you have that, then start to be more interesting to have a system that could do that. You can get more out of your battery pack faster. So we'll see. We'll keep you updated of that if things changes on that front.
Yeah, that's a great point about the 1,000,000-mile battery pack. That would make a lot more sense. Maybe they're waiting to have that kind of battery to do something like that.
So what else did you like at CES? Did you check out the new motorcycles?
Yeah, so I checked out NIU. The motorcycle looked great. They have this 3-wheeled covered scooter that I think could be popular, although I don't know how much I trust the AI, parking itself kind of stuff.
You don't really need it. It's a small vehicle. Like you could park it yourself. That's invented with bikes and stuff like that. Parking's a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, what is awesome about NIU is that they've gotten their supply chain really optimized, and they can make products really inexpensively. So this is a 7 kilowatt hour battery bike, which is not a ton of range, but it's enough to get the bike up to 100 miles per hour. And they say a range of 80 miles, which is fine, but only when you're city driving at 30 miles per hour.
Yeah.
If you're going on the highway, you're not going to get that 80 miles. You'll probably get like 40 or 50, which not great, but like for the expected price, which I think will probably be around $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah,
it'll be fantastic.
Maybe a tiny bit over that, and they would still be okay, I think, in the US. Definitely something just below what Zero is offering, for example. Like it's a cheaper option, a little bit less performance, but you still have a great look,
right?
Which is important for a lot of motorcycle driver. And like you said, NIU has already a ton of experience making electric scooters. And in the US, people have when we talk about scooters, of course, we're talking about sit-on scooters here. It's not very popular past people that are it's some 14 to 16, but then people get a driver's license here, and electric scooters are not attractive anymore. You don't see many adults on an electric scooter, unfortunately. So that they believe that product will help them penetrate the US market and North America probably too. I love NIU a lot. Like we've tried their products before, and they're of course more popular in Europe and extremely popular in China, where they are the biggest manufacturer of electric scooter. And full disclosure, I'm also invested in the company. I think it's at least it was a good investment, micro investment, but I think this still has some room to grow too. And I'm interested to see what's the price range for that, because they just entered the market with their electric scooters in the US. and there's not many details about their retail sales, but they do have some decent numbers now with their partnership for the shared scooters programs. So it will be interesting to see how they do in the US.
Yeah, so I mentioned the 3-wheeled scooter. They're also going to expand their regular scooter sales in the US, which I think is good. They also have a bunch of rideshare deals going on. So
You're gonna get bikes too, like straight up bikes too.
Yeah, they're in a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading off of our best of CES 2020. The big, I think, surprise of the event, maybe overall, was that Sony trotted out a car, but Sony's not going to build a car, at least not anytime soon. It was more I don't know, what do you call that? Like it's a concept, it's a prototype, but one that
A showcase of their technology for the automotive market. That's basically what they framed it as. But at the same time, they did mention a bunch of like powertrain specs and things like that, which was surprising. And you did mention the fact that some of their closer competitor in the broader market, like Samsung, for example, did I don't know if they still do, but for a while they had their own electric car.
It was electric car.
But I'm not sure if it was just electric. I think maybe they would get gas powered cars too, but they were under their own brand. I think they had a partner though, maybe Saab or something like that. Was able to make in there?
I feel like it was Renault.
Maybe Renault. Oh yeah, I think you might be right. So it's not completely impossible that they do it. But it was mainly a showcase of like their in-car entertainment system. I think maybe a few sensors. They were big on sensors for
cameras.
Yeah,
and just more background. LG builds like a huge percentage of the Chevy Bolt, for instance.
Though it's not under their own brand, they're not like selling it right there.
Right, but they have the expertise, and maybe it's only a matter of time before these guys get into the concept.
So a lot of people draw a comparison to the Model 3. They think that the design itself looks extremely similar to the Model 3. What do you think?
I don't know. It kind of looks a little bit more like the Model S in the rear picture that I have on the post.
But click on on Jamie's post on it. Look at the front end, like
front end looks a little bit like somewhere between the Model 3, and I would even say there's like some Taycan influence in the front.
That's fair. It's beautiful though, beautiful concept.
Yeah,
like you could bring that to market, and I'm sure a lot of people would buy it just for the look of it if the specs were.
Sony's a brand that people would want to be driving around, and obviously they would make a good sound system and center stack. It's not crazy to think that they would get in that business.
Personally, I'm not big on Sony like products. Their TVs, I always love their Bravia TVs. They always had great TVs. But other than that, I've never been like their phones, their laptops, things like that. I've never been that big of a fan of.
It makes some good headphones, I think, too.
I was buying new headphones today.
Yeah,
and I heard that the new Sony's, the new noise cancelling ones were like close competition to Bose now. Like the Bose used to have a big advantage on noise cancelling, and now Sony was getting closer. But I tried them both at the store, and I ended up sticking with the Bose, which I had the previous version of the same ones. Now I bought this one, which leads me to something that, bringing back the car, a lot of car makers now looking into like active noise cancelling inside the car, so like to combat the noise with noise cancelling that are from entire car purposes. So like you can not just isolate the cabin, but have active noise cancelling in the cabin. So that would be interesting. So we need to get into that.
Yep. It's interesting. More people in the game, the better, I think. And the brand has some lovers and some haters.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes over the best of CES. We also did. So we went to the Byton event. And like I have to say, like sadly, we have some colleagues that are actually they're employed by Byton, in the business.
Yeah,
But
I don't know how that works. The old Byton ambassador program they have, like they employ journalists to be ambassador of the brand.
right.
Which I mean, we've been accused of being a Tesla ambassadors in the past because of the referral program, but I feel like the referral program, there's other automakers that have referral programs. I mean, we refer to automakers too, but ambassadors, like, they're directly paid by the company. It's,
They're getting cash
strange.
and they're being floated around. Anyway,
Yeah.
I like those guys. I wouldn't trust them to make a Byton car decision, or tell me stuff about Byton because they're getting paid. But I like those guys anyway. Like, so
No, I'm perfectly fine with them too. I'm more curious about Biden's side of it. Like, it's the first time we've seen an approach like that from an automaker, like to hire journalists as ambassadors. It's a first, as far as I can tell.
Yep. So anyway, we went to the event. It was mostly, a pomp and circumstance. We've seen kind of the car. The car is not amazing. Like it looks, kind of like the Leaf, or the, it's just an EV. It doesn't have amazing specs, acceleration.
It's supposed to be cheap though, right? Is it?
Relatively inexpensive. It's still EV, in the 30s probably in the US. I don't remember.
And it's China built and exported globally, right?
Right. So the thing that they keep touting, and like why you're going to want this thing, is because of the display. So that there's this display on the right side of the car. It used to be kind of wrap around the car, but now it's just on the right side of the car.
Oh, it's not in front of the driver anymore?
No, and not only that, but the driver can't see the display. It's got this like blinding thing where only the passenger and the rear occupants can see the display. It's actually
that's a complete change of the strategy for them, because
right.
They were saying it's going to be a self-driving car and you got a ton of screen and everything, and there wasn't even a screen in the steering wheel.
Okay, hold on. I might be losing my mind a little bit. I think that's actually the Faraday that blinds you. Sorry about that, everyone. Too much happening at CES.
Too much car at CES. Too much car.
So the Byton thing does allow you to see the whole screen in the car while you're driving. What is kind of controversial about it is it's like your whole life. So basically, you can do a video conference in the car, and you can do, not while you're driving, but you can do Microsoft Office type stuff. You can do presentations. You can do. It has like your health and fitness. So basically your whole life. But the problem is problem is, kind of a whatever word, but Byton is a Chinese company. They're going to send all your data to China. I don't think a lot of people are going to want that. And the stuff that Byton actually does have, I'm not sure that a bunch of people are going to even want that generally.
Those features, the features
like,
start with.
I can count on 0 hands how many times I wanted a video conference in my car. Like, it's like the worst case scenario. I guess maybe if the experience is better, maybe that'll be something that people will do while they're salespeople driving around. So I left the Byton event kind of like it just doesn't, it's not speaking to me. The car is not amazing, from a performance perspective or design perspective. And that thing that kind of differentiates it, that wraparound screen, doesn't appeal to me either. So
I'm sure it appeals to some people.
Yep.
Yeah, that they like that idea. Like, I mean, I'm a screen real estate guy. I cannot get enough screen. Like, if you look around me right now, there's 2 computers, 2 phones, and everything. It screens everywhere. But in the car, I do understand the need of I do like a certain amount of screen, but like it gets too much in a car, unless you're self-driving. But then you have to rely on Byton to deliver a full self-driving system, and I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a big ask. So just for the YouTube people, we're doing the podcast later, and I just realized that I don't have any lights in here, and it's getting darker and darker as the day.
We used to do it at 12 Eastern time, and now we're back at 4. Set is still on the East Coast, and now this week I'm in Mississippi, so I'm an hour behind you. So it's still light here, though. It's overcast. So also, I'm more south than you are. So
I'm turning up the brightness on my display. So
yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Speaking of the you're getting it confused with the Faraday. So Faraday also had an event at CES. What did you think? So they announced the price on that thing too. I mean, there was a lot of speculation over the years. Well, and then we start caring about them because for a while it looks like it wasn't happening. Then they finally have their financing now, so it looks like it might happen. It's still expensive. We thought it was going to be between $200,000 and $300,000, and sure enough, it's $225,000. I think it's starting price.
It starts below, but it goes up to $225,000.
Okay.
I think without anything, it's going to be in the mid 100,000 range. It's kind of
hard sell.
It's a hard sell. I mean, if you look at the back, the back is like a first class cabin of a international, not like the Delta first class, but like
Air Canada first class. Air Canada first class is pretty good.
I haven't flown Air Canada, so I won't. Or I don't. I certainly haven't flown Air Canada first class, so I don't know.
Oh, you have those same like lay down seat and everything. The problem is like that's like I mean, I've flown a few times like a first class, and it's definitely worth it for like longer flights. Like, well, not that I would pay full price for it. I'll never do that, but you can see the comfort difference. But then when you're driving a car, like. Are you gonna do like an 8-hour road trip with someone driving you?
I think that's the idea. Like I think I don't think this car is built to drive. Like you're not buying this car to drive this car, even though it's got like 1,000 horsepower. You're buying this car to sit in the back. Like all the features, all the cool stuff is all in the back. So this is kind of like a Bentley or a Rolls Royce or whatever kind of limo.
Though the Rolls Royce, they have the advantage of at that price, they come with the brand name and everything too. Like people wants that Rolls Royce and want that thing, the statue that pops out of the hood and everything. I mean, Faraday is not there, not even close as a startup and everything.
No,
so
it's a cool looking car for sure.
Yeah, it's a cool looking car. It's a cool looking technology and everything, but such a hard sell.
Yeah, and so
it's
and also Faraday has like been up and down. Like, and when I say down, I mean like pretty much dead for almost a year. So that is not going to help their brand. They actually pulled an executive from Byton to be the new CEO. So what they're doing right now, it feels like, is they're just trying to get that first car delivered, second car delivered, and I think with that they're going to either try to do another capital raise or sell to
some people would just say like, oh, well, Tesla did the same thing. They came out with a very expensive cars at first, but they came out with a sports car. So like a lot of the rich people will buy a sports car, like for have a weekend car to drive around to have fun with it. I mean, like you said, it is a powerful car that you can probably have fun with it, but it's all built around this being driven experience, and that's a whole different market than a sports car. Much smarter market than a sports car. Maybe like they are technically like sort of a Chinese company, like they are California based technically, but they were founded by they are financed by a Chinese company. So maybe they think that it's good. There's going to be a bigger market for it in China. Like a lot more people are being driven in China than in the US. So maybe that's the logic there.
Yeah. So we had our first drive in it, and we got to sit in the back, which was the place to be in that car. It accelerates quite rapidly. I would say like a Tesla does. And the back is super comfortable. They have a huge screen back there. It's as plush. Like if you were designing a car around the back seat, it's probably what you would come up with. So there's a lot of smart thinking there. I just think it's a smaller market segment that they're trying to target now that Tesla's kind of run away with the high-end crossover market. So it is what it is. I wish them the best of luck. The folks there were very nice and very accommodating. I actually hadn't set up a interview with them, and I was walking by them to go to some other thing, and I saw 2 Faradays, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And they were like, "We're showing them." I'm like, "We would love to go for a ride," and they're like, "All right, come back in an hour," and that's how it kind of came to fruition. So what else was there?
Fisker. Well, it wasn't. They weren't there, but they launched it with the CES, I think.
Yeah, so that's I guess typical Fisker being weird. They're launching it at CES, but they're in Los Angeles. So we were like, hey, we're gonna go to the Fisker event. Where is it? And it was at LA, and strangely they had like one of our, I wouldn't say one of our competitors, but like another website do the live streaming of it, which didn't work in my so I couldn't even watch the live stream. So I think, as we've said before, I know you're certainly a fan of Henrik Fisker's designs.
Huge fan.
The Karma is
Huge fan.
beautiful. I think this one's a nice. What did you think about this? The Ocean.
I don't think it's his best work.
Okay, that's fair.
But I mean, at the same time, it's also, it is what it is. It's a little crossover type thing. So I feel like it's harder to make that look good. For what it is, I feel like it's good.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm having a tough time like giving any credibility to all the specs that comes with it, like due to Fisker's not only the what happened with the original Fisker and the Fisker Karma and everything that it eventually failed, and now it's has been taken over by a Chinese company and rebranded. It's also the way he set up this whole new startup, where he unveiled like four different concept vehicles before unveiling this one that is apparently like the first one that's going to get into production. He did some stock puppeting on articles too to try to boost up his profile. So that was weird too. I had some Twitter exchange with him that were just bizarre. It wasn't making any sense. So then there was all the promises of solid state batteries that sort of were supposed to come out last year. They didn't, unsurprisingly, of course. So I mean, I'm like, everything he says, it sounds good. Like the $37,500 before tax incentive. He wants to release them with flexible leases starting at $380 a month. Car has a decent range, a super fast acceleration, under 3 seconds. He has some solar roof features to it, which people have been talking about, introducing in a bunch of different cars. Like it all makes sense on paper, but do we rely on Fisker to bring that to market?
Yeah, it's a good question. You did mention the solar panel on the roof. Mikey and I had a chance, unfortunately, in the evening while it was dark, to visit Lightyear. And
I saw that it was in the dark. I'm like,
well,
it's a solar car.
I was like, hey, dude, call me. And he didn't call me until like 5 o'clock. We were coming back from the Bosch bike ride. And he's like, yeah, we're in a parking lot. And this was like the randomest parking lot in Las Vegas. And
for people who don't know, some companies, instead of actually being at CES and paying the expensive price for a booth, they will rely on all the journalists being at CES during that time and like find another place in Las Vegas to just show their cars where they don't have to pay the big CES prices.
Right. So they were in the like Howard Johnson's parking lot. And it was not a lit parking lot. It was actually kind of sketchy. So we went there. They had a truck and they put the high beams on, but like we couldn't get any really good footage. We weren't allowed to drive in it. So they drove it around a little bit, which was fine, but we weren't allowed to even be inside while they were driving.
Oh, it's not even a test ride.
Right.
They were claiming it was going to be a test ride.
And they didn't go fast. They were kind of just like going, I mean, the parking lot was like a mess. It was a lot of potholes and stuff. And I was like, don't break the car on our account driving around this parking lot. So anyway, their idea, they kind of came here as an afterthought. They are going to take the vehicle to California and Sand Hill Road and try to get some more funding for it. It's fantastic when you think about what they've done. So as a little background, they were a solar race. They raced across Australia with a solar powered vehicle, and they actually got 4 human beings inside this like basically bicycle with a solar panel on top. That team came out and said, hey, I think we can build a car for production. So a few years into that, they basically made the most efficient car that's roadworthy, and they've done that by making very small wheels. So it's kind of like a BMW i3 wheels. Actually, I think they're slightly bigger than the i3 wheels, which is kind of embarrassing for BMW, but super aerodynamic, very low. They did something smart that I think Tesla could learn from. Their battery pack that is also on the floor of the car isn't. They have holes in the battery pack where people put their feet, so that they can they can have their feet down, so it feels like you're actually in a much wider car than you are. So they've done all these optimizations, and where does that get them? This car has a 60 kilowatt hour battery, which is the same size as like a Chevy Bolt or the original Tesla, but it goes 440 miles on that 60 kilowatt hours. And this is before we're even talking about the solar. The solar can add 20 to 25 miles per day, which is, a low end commute. But, over, if you leave that thing outside, it has a little bit over a kilowatt of solar panel on the roof. If your commute's 20 miles a day, you can never plug it in. That's kind of different.
Yep.
So they're trying to get more funding so they can build more of these. I think it's probably a few years off if they ever get off the ground. They're still very startup. I mean, they're all engineers. Love talking to the guys, but it's hard to see that getting into production because
it's expensive too. They announced the price on it, right?
$150,000. And while there's reports that they're working on a cheaper $50,000 model, I just like that $150,000. Like, there's probably a couple hundred people on Earth who would be willing to put out that much money for a car
for that kind of car too. Right. I mean, you're buying the idea of a solar car. That's what you're buying, an extremely efficient car. So you want to drive the most efficient solar car ever made. That's it. But normally when people pay $100,000, like why Tesla work is because you pay $100,000, but you were beating every other $100,000 cars on every possible point that you can base a car on. So that's not the case here. You're buying the solar car idea,
right? And premium. The 0 to 60 time on this one is like 9 or 10 seconds, which, like, we had that Mazda story today. They lowered their 0 to 60 to 13 seconds. Man, Mazda's a mess. But they've made this car super efficient. One interesting stat they told me that they could drive in Australia with the sun at 25 miles per hour indefinitely, as long as the sun was out. So they were absorbing sun at a rate that allowed them to drive 25 miles per hour.
Which is not fast, but not bad either.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not highway speed.
If you ran out of electricity, like going 25 miles per hour would be better than not going anywhere. So anyway, that's a kind of a neat, side project, I guess. And maybe it gets absorbed by Toyota or somebody who
would kill it pretty quick.
Yeah, but maybe they take some of the technology and put solar roofs around or something. I mean, I still think Tesla should have a solar roof on their cars, not to power their cars, or not much power to the cars, but just to shave off the vampire drain, and just from like marketing their solar panels.
Apparently, that's going to happen in the Cybertruck. That's what Elon said.
That's right. So
we'll see. Speaking of Tesla, let's talk about some Tesla news this week, since that's what we do. Let's start with the stock price, because that was on everyone's mind this week, because it shoot up to almost $500 at one point. I haven't checked it today, to be honest. I had a busy day. It's down a little bit, I assume, but not too much. Looks like 480 or something. It closed at 478. So it was a good week. It was a good week. And
we started the week at 440, right?
Something like that. So a few interesting thing on that front, like why that happened. Like I think the Tesla has been on a rally for months now, so there's a momentum to it too. Some people are talking about a short squeeze, but if you look at what it takes to borrow shares of Tesla right now, it's not expensive, so it doesn't look like it's as much an issue on that front. And over the last 30 days, the short interest is actually up. So that the latest crazy part of that rally is not based on short interest, apparently. So a short squeeze could still be on the horizon, which would be insane at this point. But A few things that help. China helped. Start of customer deliveries in China. Then people had different opinions on the actual event, where you see Elon Musk dancing around and taking off his jacket and throwing it into a crowd, which I mean, what I found fun. Like, I mean, the guy is a weirdo. Like, what you want to do? So I didn't put too much stock into that. But what I found fascinating is people's opinion of it. Where you look at the Tesla super fans, they're all like, Elon is super happy. That must mean that the quarter wasn't just great for the deliveries, but the financials were also awesome. And then the short interest, the shorts and the naysayers were all like, oh, Elon lost his mind, so things are going bad at Tesla and he's losing his mind. So like, it's one or the other, right? It's cannot be just the guy's in China, he's launching his factory, he's a bit too excited and he's a weirdo, so he started dancing.
I think I'm with you on option C there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen Elon do something weird on stage. Like, I mean, it was one of the weirdest ones today, but still. So, of course, we knew that was going to happen. The start of deliveries, Tesla apparently is already like 1,000 units per week production capacity. So it was more of a ceremonious thing than anything else. Though there was some Tesla Model Y news at the event, like not too much of a Model Y news, because I mean, he officially launched the program at Gigafactory 3. So we knew already that Tesla planned to do Model Y Gigafactory 3. We didn't know the exact timeline of it, though. We don't know it after the launch either, because they didn't really disclose that. They just started the program there, which the meaning of it is like they start investing into the production capacity that's going to result in making the Model Y at Gigafactory 3 in Shanghai. My own estimation is I think it's about 6 months behind the program in the US, which I think is going to start in low volume production within the next weeks, really, like maybe like 4 weeks, 5 weeks max. I think we're going to see it in mid to late February. We're going to see the very first Model Y being produced, very low volume, of course, and then slowly ramp up to 1,000 a week over the next few months. And then 6 months after that, so at the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the first Model Y coming out of I don't know, actually volume production of Model Y toward the end of the year at Gigafactory 3. That wouldn't be too surprising to me. One interesting thing that Elon said about the Model Y, though, at the Gigafactory event, is that he sort of teased some advanced manufacturing technology that would be revealed in the future. So there's been a bunch of speculation about that, because if you remember, said at one point he was considering making a whole new platform for the Model Y other than Model 3. Originally, it was supposed to be just based on the Model 3. And then he said, no, I think we can redo the whole thing. We can reduce the wiring harness in the vehicle. We can change it to a 48-volt system too inside, and a bunch of other things. And then he revealed a few months later that his management team sort of hold him back on that and said it would make more sense to base it on the Model 3, sharing more parts and launch a vehicle sooner, because there's a lot of demand for crossover. It would have pushed the Model Y probably in 2022, 2023 or something like that, which would have been a big deal for Tesla. Anyway, so now we know that the Model Y apparently shares 75% of its parts with the Model 3, which is extremely high. Model X was based on the same platform as the Model S, and apparently only shared 30% of its parts with the car. So big improvement on that front. But with that 25% parts being different, apparently Elon is still claiming some manufacturing improvements. So the Model Y should be easier to manufacture than the Model 3. Or maybe they could bring those advanced manufacturing improvement to the Model 3 too, which would also be extremely interesting, I think. So potential for that on that front. One quick article that I wrote on that I just thought was interesting. It's not that big of a deal. It's a 60-car order for Tesla. But what I found interesting about it is the 60-car order is coming from the Free Now app, which is a joint venture of BMW and Daimler, like a ride-hailing app that they have in Europe. And they want to use it more with electric vehicles. So they would want to expand electric vehicle fleet on the app. And instead of using Mercedes-Benz vehicle or BMW electric vehicles, they decided to go with Tesla vehicles, even though the company is owned by the two German automakers. So it tells you that they did the math and they're like, yeah, the Tesla makes more sense for what we're trying to do here, which is basically be an electric taxi. And we've seen, of course, a ton of taxi companies now going with Teslas because the economics are starting to make sense.
Yeah, the savings of electricity over gas is really profound when they're at work all the time. I'm surprised they didn't choose a EQV. I mean, I can see why they wouldn't use a BMW i3, but EQC. I'm surprised that wasn't one of the options for the company.
Shorter range, less efficient.
Yeah,
that's a problem. Quick note for our listeners in Canada. This all-weather protection kit is now out. I got an email this week saying that I can just stop to the service center and they give me the kit, which is basically mud flaps that you put on your front wheels, behind your front wheels, and it's gonna help protect the paint. So for Tesla owners that had their vehicle, Model 3 owners that had their vehicle last winter in places where they do use sand and little rocks and whatnot to better the conditions on the road, some of them notice that there's paint degradation behind the wheels a lot faster than it should be. So Tesla is providing those mud flaps for free. They don't install them though, so they give it to you and they give you instruction to install them themselves, and apparently it's pretty easy. Only in Canada so far, apparently. So not in the Northeast, where they also use sand and small rocks on the road. Some salt too can affect paint.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Like Scandinavian countries also would need that. Yesterday I posted an article too about Jeff Dawn. So Jeff Dawn is a pioneer in lithium-ion batteries, and he's been the head of Tesla's research lab in Canada for the past 3 years. Basically trying to find ways to improve Tesla batteries and make them last longer, make them cost less, and make them have higher energy density. And the guy is recognized as one of the top battery researchers in the world, a big addition to Tesla. And over the last year, they started filing a lot of patents and some papers about a new battery chemistry that could allow even 1 million miles in the battery pack, which Elon has been talking about too. So not a coincidence, I'm sure. One of his former students reached out to point out to me that the University of Dalhousie, which is in Halifax, and it's where his lab is located, and Tesla is sponsoring basically the lab, and so they were getting the IP coming out of it, but it's in partnership with the university. The university is looking for 2 new chairs, one for the Tesla program and one for the Erzberg Dawn chair, which is also part of the battery research lab in Dalhousie University. So what it looks like is he's planning his succession basically. He's getting older a little bit. He's 63 years old. Well, what we're being told is that he's not planning to retire anytime soon, but he's looking at creating a strong succession, and that would start by finding a new chair for the Tesla program, and then mentoring the new chair and ensuring that there's a long-term plan to take over his lab so that it doesn't just disappear when he goes away. But apparently he still plans to be part of the battery community and push forward research on that front. So it's probably a loss for Tesla, but if it's handled well, it could actually be a good thing, like getting new blood, and the new blood being mentored by Jeff Dawn, which is a big deal.
Yeah, 65 though, that's not that old.
In Canada, retirement age.
Yeah, but maybe he's moving to Fremont. Maybe he's going full time. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently he doesn't plan to retire. It's just
who's that guy? The other battery guy, Good Enough, I think is the last name. Yeah, he's like what, 95 or something crazy, and he's still in the lab every day.
Yeah,
he's got 30 more years of productivity.
Yeah, it's inspiring. All right, that's pretty much us for us. I think we have a few questions though, right? And if you do have some, it's time to put them in because we're gonna.
All right, I'm going in. All right. When do you reckon the semi will reach Norway?
No clue. Next one. No, I'm
All right.
kidding. I mean, we don't know. I mean, when it was first launched in 2016, Jerome Guillaume, the head of the program at the time, did mention that they plan to do a European version of it because there's different regulation and everything. So they do plan to do one for sure. Now with low volume at the end of the year, probably volume production next year in the US, 2022 at the earliest, in my opinion. And I wouldn't hold my breath on that.
All right. Joel Sepp asks, how many EVs did Nissan sold in the US? Are they about to run out of tax credits? They told me that they're around 150,000, so they've got almost 2 years left at their current rate.
Wow, hey, 2 years left. That depends. That's a 25,000 new cars a year.
Yeah, but they're
I
not.
think they sold like I think they sold 13,000 last year, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's even more. Yeah. Well, unless they do launch that crossover later this year, then probably it's gonna go faster. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. So and K Calculator also kind of heard that anyway. Sony coordinated enough to be able to make a Sony car. They're in a ton of industries, but so is LG and Samsung, and they enter new industries all the time. This is how these conglomerates work. We'll see. Chris Sepala says, even with solar Powerwall, it would be nice to tap into an EV battery during extended outages. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's an attractive idea for a lot of people.
You could also take this on the road, like your EV could be power for somebody else's house. And I think that's part of why Japan was so adamant about having this capability after Fukushima. All right. Sounds like Byton never heard about Gamergate, and I think that's in referral to the brand ambassadors. Yeah, the car industry is a little different. I think
I didn't remember Gamergate's being about that.
Well, that was one of the components of it. I think one of the journalists was To be honest with you, I missed the Gamergate thing. Like it was just happening all of a sudden, and I was like, where did this come from? And then
I wasn't that much of a gamer at times.
All right. So this is the general public does not appreciate getting fooled by journalists that are also employed by the company they are reviewing. Okay, it's fair. And give the stream a like, guys. Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, please do.
Other people talked to Wallbox, and they were told that backup mode operation is not supported, only grid interactive operation. That I heard was not the case. So we'll have to clear up with them. Stone Age Seth has a computer but no electric light. That's not true. I do have electric lights, but they're too far to reach. So I'm not going to get up from the chair in the middle of a podcast and do that. All right. YouTube rules, they will clearly need to articulate the relationship they have with Byton every time they say, oh, that's a good point. All right. Fisker makes a lot of promises. Wait for what actually gets released to the public. That's also a good point. Read an article about how Tesla shorts have lost over $2 billion in just the first 7 days of 2020. I mean, it depends on how you calculate it, but
sounds about right, to be honest.
It's quite a bit of money.
Also, Elon got like probably $2 billion of value added to his his fortune.
Can start paying back some of those loans. All right. Joel Sapp says they are now the third most shorted stock, and I feel like they were number 2 before. So, but it's not going to stop, especially at 500. More shorting stuff. Let's see.
Oh, Denmark got the mud slap too. All right, thanks for the info, Pascal.
Thank you, Pascal. Nicola will have their EV semi in Europe before Tesla ever will. That's
you want to put some money on that, Mr. Koto Doctor?
We'll see. Why no red Model 3s in China? That's a good question.
Are they not? I mean, I know that they have the same like standard color in the US, which is now white, I think. But
maybe they're waiting for like a special to have like a special.
Yeah, the Chinese New Year is coming, right? When's the Chinese New Year?
Yeah, it is. That's a good point. That's probably why.
It's good marketing.
Yeah. Can you do a survey of customers of the new Tesla home solar rental program? A quick search of Yelp in my area shows scathing 1-star reviews of Tesla solar. Maybe a good topic for a future article. That may be due to the older Solar City because they were kind of
No.
overselling themselves.
Yeah, because I don't know if Tesla sold, like if you're specific to the rental program, that's extremely new. Tesla Solar in general is a lot older, and if you had the Solar City to it, it's been around for years.
Will Model Y get more range? I don't think initially, but sure, sometime.
It's gonna be that's certainly one of the 75% of the part that's gonna be the same as Model 3. So if Model 3 does, Model Y, excuse me, will.
Somebody's laughing at the 2 billion bus fare. Pronounced Casey Auto Doctor. That's all right. And then last one, will the new battery tech enable Tesla to lower price of the Powerwall so more people will consider it?
Most likely. I mean, there's been some rumors because, of course, Tesla used NNC in one and NC, an MC in one and NC in the other. And they've been rumored that for the Tesla Model 2 China, they were moving to NMC. So then they would use the same batteries in their cars that they do in their Powerwalls. That could be an interesting avenue for synergy and economy of scale. So yeah, that's a possibility for sure.
All right, that's it for questions.
All right. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. Thanks a lot for watching on YouTube. You can leave us a thumbs up and subscribe to YouTube. That's always useful. If you're on the podcast app, you can leave us a review and a rating. That's always nice. And we're going to see you at the same time next week. Ciao, guys.